remind you, coming up at the half, we'll join who, Charles?
The coach.
The coach, Jonathan Coachman, standing by in Orlando. He'll have stats and scores from games in progress, as well as scores from earlier today.
The coach.
We get slap happy up here sometimes. Call it a gain of 4 on first, and that'll make it second down.
Second and 6. At the 24.
The run got 4. Now they deal with a 2nd and 6. Jackson now. Now they go screen. It's complete. A good job defensively to hold that to 4 yards, and now it's 3rd down.
In order for a screen pass to break big, a lot of things have to come together and be well executed, but all it takes is one small thing to go wrong and keep it from being a big gain.
Now the Jags with 5 in the secondary now on 3rd down. And it would appear he's going to be short of a 1st down as he stopped right around the 29. The Jaguars going to go ahead and use their first timeout as they'll head to the sideline and talk over what to do next. And on now is the punter as he's on to punt for the first time this afternoon. And he was called on 3 times in the win last week as his first one here's away. Here's more on the return. So a change of possession here on the punt. And the Jaguars go on offense, 1st down and 10. Jaguars come to the line to start their next drive. And they're in a bind early here, down 14-0. Are you worried at this stage or still too early?
You're worried. You're just trying not to transmit it to the rest of your team. You want to make sure that they stay positive, but at the same time, you're wondering, how are we going to move the football? What do we have on this play sheet that can work? Get back to basics is usually your answer, and make sure you find the guy who can move the ball fastest for you if you just get it in his hands.
Yeah, still 2nd quarter. You get points on the board here. I think you're feeling okay.
3rd down.
Down. 10-2 stop. 54. Right. 54. Go.
On 3rd down, Jackson. And that is incomplete. Not much going on this drive. Looks like they're going to have to punt it away, CD.
And right now, I know a lot of their fans are screaming for the OC to change things up, get away from what he's been calling. Sometimes you just need better execution of the plays that have been called.
And the punt team on now as this one's sent away. Fielded just inside the 30. A good return there. Call it 13 yards. And that will come the offense as they take over. Time for our first check of the NFL scoreboard. And that one for the 49ers, now a 2-touchdown advantage. And we'll try and keep you updated on those events and others around the league as we continue through this one. The offense back out there at the line, ready for their next drive. Less than 30 seconds to go in the half. Pretty good starting field position, all things considered. You'd think they definitely have time to get to field goal range.
Yes, and you get into the huddle or you come off.
And the Jags get to him as down he goes. Now the offense going to use the first of their timeouts, as it'll come with 15 seconds to play in the first half. So now 20 yards to go on 2nd down after the sack. Work to be done. And obviously not fooling anybody here as they stop him behind the line of scrimmage. This will be a loss of 3, and now a much tougher 3rd down looming. So we have come to halftime in what's already a 2-touchdown game. As we'll send you back over to Orlando with our EA Sports Halftime Report, here's Jonathan Coachman. All right, Coach, thank you, and we welcome everyone back for quarter number 3. Both teams appear ready for the fight ahead, and we resume action here in quarter number 3. This is taken about 7 yards deep. Spins by. Oh, he did it again. And nice work on the return as they'll start their drive just past the 30-yard line.
At their own 31-yard line.
Jaguars come to the line to start their next drive. These guys had to punt last time. It has not been a very fruitful game offensively thus far. They haven't even made a trip to the red zone.
And I know that everyone's going crazy on that sideline because that drives you berserk. To come off the field, not really move the ball well. As you said, not even get to the red zone, let alone, not even put points on the board. They've got to just take a deep breath, relax, try and figure out what is working, and call more of that.
Throwing on 2nd and 8. Jackson. And he's going to be intercepted a third time. Picked off at the 49. And they get the football. They'll set up shop at their own 49-yard line.
At their own 49-yard line.
The offense now at the line, ready for their next drive. After the interception, here's Jackson. He's going deep for Brown. But when this ball's tipped it in, and I do believe this is going to wind up a safety. It is. It's a safety. How about that for a wacky play? Wow, what a disaster. You talk about a guy making a good play on the interception and then just trying to be too cute on the return.
It almost felt like his own gyroscope really got out of whack, didn't it? Going backwards into your own end zone after such a great play. Totally disoriented and gave up 2 points for his team.
And an alley to run.
Good work, boys. Let's go. Let's go.
The offense back out there at the line, ready for their next drive. And last time, one-play interception. So this offense, they should be fresh.
That's a good way of putting it. And I can't wait to see what they decide to do with play calling. Because a one-play drive where you throw an interception, a lot of people think the very next time out, run the football, don't give them a chance.
Maybe play action?
I think maybe you go play action, show your quarterback, you get a little confidence in him, and let him fling another one.
Six yards on that last play. Here's 2nd and 4.
It's going to be a long day, offense. It's going to be a long day.
4 yards there on the keeper, but still going to bring up a third down.
They're trying to show that they can run the ball and protect this lead. Give it to the backs, play a little bit of keep away, don't you think?
And that's probably a good philosophy at this point, going to make that defense stand up and stop them. And on third down, a nickel formation here defensively. This time, Jackson will throw it. And he's got his man on the out route. And he's got the first down yardage as he takes it down to the 49. He had the touchdown earlier. This one's going to get him a first down. They'll run on first down. Singleton. And down to the 44, 5 yards that time.
Tough first half for him, unable to put up the numbers he's used to producing. But with a guy like him, you and I both know it just takes a couple of explosive touches for him to make an impact on this game and on the stat sheet as well.
And there just continues to be nowhere to run. He's bottled up again at the line of scrimmage. No gain on the play there, so they're left with a 3rd down and 6.
3rd down and 6.
Now they'll need the 39 here for a first. This is 3rd down.
Move. 3 now, 3.
Jackson from the shotgun. And he's got the completion to Hopkins. And he's going to have another first down as the tackle's made at the Jaguars' 29-yard line.
I think it all came together there. In-breaking route, drove it with excellent pace. Money throw right there to move the sticks.
Ain't no such thing as a loss. We taking wins home.
Jackson on first down. They'll try and set up the screen. It's complete. And he will lose yardage back to the 34-yard line. It's a loss of 5 there, bringing up second. So after a rare misstep on this drive, they'll try to make amends on 2nd and 15. Play action. Now Jackson. Flush to his right. He'll try and run it. Finding room to the 20. Lamar Jackson, such a threat with those legs, able to improvise and get the first.
Now, that was a whole lot of open space out in front of him, wasn't it? I'm telling you, Brandon, when things are going right, they are going right.
And everything has been going their way for the most part. I saw that lane start to develop. Boom. He took advantage of it. Now a run on first down is not going to get off the ground as they will get him behind the line of scrimmage for a loss of 3. They'll wind up losing 3 yards here. And that'll make this a 2nd and 13.
Watch the run. Watch the run.
Here's Jackson. Being chased out left. And he'll be hit as he releases it. And that'll fall incomplete.
Well, we always talk about how you've got to be quick when you go through your progressions, and here's another prime example. Trying to look downfield, he was standing in the pocket, but just couldn't find anyone open, could he?
No, not enough time. They hit him and forced that incompletion. Throwing on 3rd and long. Jackson, he's going to and it's caught. Touchdown. From 21 yards away. And his guys find a way to stretch that lead. And, partner, they found a gap there on the post pattern, and it was in the middle third of the field.
And that's really difficult to do because ordinarily the safeties are back there to prevent that happening. But they found the opening and exploited it.
The extra point splits the uprights, and that pushes the lead up to 23. This is taken about 7 yards deep. And in hindsight, probably should have stayed where he was as he'll only get back to the 16-yard line. Jaguars come to the line to start their next drive. And following the interception, just any interception, are you a little bit more cautious when you start that next drive, or no, you just throw that out the window?
I think you...
Nowhere to escape, and he goes down. And they weren't in zone coverage. They were in man, and each man did his job.
And that looked like vintage, old-school coverage, didn't it? Man coverage reminded me of an old Raiders team. They had a Hall of Famer at one corner and a Defensive Player of the Year at the other, and they just locked people down.
54 is Mike. 54 is Mike. Check, check. Watch 54. Watch 54. Exit, exit. Check 52. Slam, slam, slam. Hey, echo. Check, check, check. 2.
After the sack on first down, Jackson, he's going to air one out. And that is caught one-handed. Oh, my, he pulled it in. It's a big play for the Jaguars. 47 yards. So the big play gets him across midfield now for 1st and 10.
Whip, 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 whip. Watch the whip.
Five. From the gun, it's Jackson. Steps away to his left. And he can't find anywhere to go with it. And he goes down. Different story this time around. We had that huge gain followed by a sizable loss here. So after the sack, here's 2nd and 14. To throw is Jackson. He's got the first down here inside the 30. And he'll go down, and that will do it for the third quarter of action. Back now in the Rose City of Portland, Oregon. A lot of happy faces in the crowd at this point as their guys have a big lead here to start quarter number 4. On first down, Way. He'll get the first down and more inside the 20. And he's going to get it all the way down to the 10-yard line. That's good for 21 yards and a first down. This is a very impressive drive, especially when you consider where they started from to now be set up first and goal.
Yeah, and some nice running right there. That's what got them the first down. But at this point, I suggest open up your playbook. You can call just about what you want.
And they'll go backwards here, losing yardage to the 14.
Alpha.
Throwing on 2nd and 14. Jackson. And his throw's going to be incomplete. Just nothing there again. He's been sacked multiple times. We've seen the interceptions, of course. He's really been through the ringer, hasn't he?
And what we've seen is a defense that's well coordinated. The front and the back really in sync. The front putting on the pressure. The backside being ball hawks and picking passes off.
And he goes backwards here, losing yardage back to the 16. That'll make it 4th down after a loss of 1. Hate to say it, but that play typifies what we've seen from this offense all game long.
Yeah, don't you think maybe you flip over your play sheet as the offensive coordinator and see the side that says try something different? You know, because this has not worked all game long. They continue to try and get it done. They've got to come up with something a little bit different. Try something special, something they haven't seen.
Anything to score a point. Throwing is Jackson. And this is going to be intercepted. Read it well, and it's picked. And a big turnover there as his guys will get the football back.
Well, this defensive pressure has been constant all game long. The pass rush, the coverage, they've all been excellent, and now they'll tack on an interception here as this one continues to slip just further and further out of hand.
The offense now at the line, ready for their next drive. Now, that turnover might just about do it here. 4th quarter, the lead that you've got, they can just run the football, run the clock.
You're exactly right. They played smart, couple of first downs, and this one should just about be over.
3 yards on the pickup there, and it'll be 2nd down. The last run got 3. Now here's 2nd and 7. They'll keep it on the ground. Covington. And he'll be corralled right around the 34. 11 yards there, first down. The running game continues to be a big part of their success here early in the 4th quarter.
And with those types of runs, that tells you they feel very confident in their running game. They feel very strong at this stage of the contest, and they want to keep doing exactly what we saw there, running the ball down their throat.
From the 34 now, here's 1st and 10. A first down run, good for about 3. 2nd and 7 coming up. A gain of 3, 2nd down.
Bottom line, they want to keep this clock rolling, so they'll take that one right there. They just want to keep falling forward, and they want to put the onus on the big fellas up front in order to bring this one home.
Here we go. Here we go. Keep your arm. I don't even know why this team showed up.
On 2nd and 7, Jackson nowhere to escape, and he goes down. Great job defensively. I think he was trying to go through his progressions, find someone to get rid of the football. Before he knew it, he was on his back.
So that just brings us right back to what you said in the beginning. A great job defensively. Nowhere to go with the football. That led to the sack.
This offense so far on 3rd down, they've been near perfect. 4 for 5 to this point. This will be a tough 3rd and 18. Play action. It's Jackson. Eluding the pressure right. That was going to let it go deep right sideline. And it's knocked away and incomplete. 4th quarter, you've got the big lead. If you're coaching, Charles, you still taking shots like that downfield?
I'd be a little more concerned with running some clock and making sure you're taking care of the lead, because you keep flinging it around, you throw a couple of picks, you can put yourself in jeopardy.
Returning it is Moore. It'll be a 51-yard punt that time. And the offense will take over with a new set of downs. Jaguars come to the line to start their next drive. And let's face it, this drive is not going to have any bearing on this game, but it's kind of important for one reason, isn't it?
It certainly is. You got to get points. And, okay, all right, I'm being facetious here. But you get points. You feel a little bit better about yourself as you move on to the next one.
Trying to shake off the interception from the last drive. He'll look to throw. Flushed out right. He's going to take off with it. And he goes out of bounds just shy of the 45. 23 yards on the tuck and run. The last drive, remember, similar situation. He forced the ball into coverage through the pick. He learned better there.
Yeah, similar to a golfer that's confronted with a shot that you just can't make. Sometimes you have to take your medicine, as they say, right? Just pull it down, take off, and go. Don't make something worse than what it was.
And this one's going to go the wrong way. Losing yardage back at the 42.
It's a loss of 2.
50, point.
Check 55. At the 42-yard
Let's go.
On 2nd and 12, Jackson escaping the pressure right. And now he's going to use his legs. All in all, no gain on the play, and it'll bring up 3rd.
And while he did a good job of sliding around in the pocket, there was nowhere to go with the football, so he had to take off and try and run. He just got back to the line of scrimmage, no gain.
Now Jackson on 3rd down. It's a short one here, complete to the tight end. They get only 4 that time as that leads us to a 4th down. Did they maybe play that too safely on 3rd down? I know you don't want to just throw a ball blindly downfield, but that didn't help them a whole lot.
I think they probably said if it's open, take the shot. If not, get something safe because we do have 4th down to try and pick it up.
They're already slim hopes are going to ride on this one. They'll go on 4th down. Just 2 minutes remaining here in the 4th quarter of what has been a one-sided affair. So it's Jaguar football here as we welcome you back. They come up on a 4th down situation with things not looking particularly rosy.
Go. Mike 54. Mike 54. Go. Go. Let's go. Hey, 1 set. Check Mike 54. Mike 54. All you get is a headache. Mike 54. Mike 54. 5.
They're going on 4th down. It's Jackson. And it is incomplete. They had to go for it with such little time remaining. And the ball will go over on downs on the short side of the field. They'll run on 1st down. Singleton. Give him a couple on the carry there. 2nd and 8.
He continues to struggle to find a crease to break off a big one and might need to just put that aside and just try and ram his way forward and get what he can.
All day, defense, all day, all day. Watch safety creep. Watch safety creeping. Safety's creeping.
Now a give right side. Covington. Give him 3 on the run there. Now they're looking at a 3rd and about 5.
Partner, we know today's NFL is really built around the guy throwing the football. But these short runs, they still pay dividends because they can take their toll on a defense and they can add up as the game goes along. You control the clock, you control the ball, and that way you often control the game.
Switch it. Come on, switch it.
Now Jackson. He's going to look deep end zone for Hopkins. And it'll be intercepted. A great read, and it's picked off.
Brandon, this is a veteran quarterback back there. He should know better than to make a throw like this. This is definitely not his best ball, and I think he knew this was trouble the second it was leaving his hand.
Jaguars come to the line to start their next drive. They're down big here late. I don't know. You just one last drive here for pride.
Some people like to do that. I remember playing for a guy once. We were down huge, and someone said, "Coach, what do you want to call?" He just waved a hand like, "Who cares? Let's get out of here and do something some other time." But some teams like to do something at the end to feel a little bit better as they continue to move forward.
Yeah, probably just want to put this one behind them. Operating from the 27 now. Here's 2nd and 3.
Zipper! No, check that.
Now it's Jackson. Now a desperation throw deep downfield. And he knocks the ball away, and it falls incomplete.
Okay, partner, hyperbole alert, all right? I think that this has got to be the best game I've seen this secondary play this entire season. Doesn't matter whether they've been in man, zone, they've reacted, communicated, and really made plays on the football.
They absolutely have. And the play on that last deep ball, maybe the best example of it, they've been solid all game long. So the incomplete pass on the last play, and that leads us to a 3rd and 3.
Rush in. X3, 218, chopper. 54's Mike. Check. Yo, go.
Quarterback, don't get nervous now. We ain't beginning to tear you up. Don't get nervous.
Here's Jackson. From the gun, he'll throw. And he's got the hook up to Moore. And he's taken down right at the 45-yard line. It was 3rd and short, and they go flying past the marker for a gain of nearly 30 yards. Final score now on our NFL scoreboard. And it was the Niners who were able to come away with a victory there. If they can hold on to that lead to the end, it would up their win total to 7. And now we're going to get a timeout. Somewhat pointlessly called with 3 seconds to go in a game that's already been decided.
Ready. 91.
You must be dreaming.
Hey, seam 6. Hey, one set. Check Mike 54. Hey, watch the slant. Mike,
one last shot for Jackson. He's going to let it fly. And this is going to be intercepted. Good positioning, and it's picked off. So plenty of smiles for the folks here as they head for the exits. It's a victory for their hometown guys. And this was truly a total team effort, Charles, on both sides of the ball.
No, they absolutely pitched a shutout, so it can't get much better than that, right? The defense led the way, but the offense did their part as well. They moved the ball up and down the field. So you've got to like what you saw. What do they call that? A total team effort? I think when it's time to hand out game balls, guys from both sides will end up getting one.
So for the home team here, the win will move them to 7-2 now on the year. And they'll hit the road next week to take on the Denver Broncos. Meanwhile, for Jacksonville, they are barely afloat as they fall to 4-5. And they'll get a chance to redeem themselves next week at home against Jacksonville.
The Panthers are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock. The Vikings are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock. The Jets are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. Cowboys are now on the clock. The Houston Gunners are now on the clock. The Lions are now on the clock. The Lions are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. Bears are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock. The Toronto Mounties are now on the clock. The Houston Gunners are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Jaguars are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock. The Jets are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Cowboys are now on the clock. The 49ers are now on the clock. The Lions are now on the clock. The Broncos are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock. The Toronto Mounties are now on the clock. The Houston Gunners are now on the clock. The Colts are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock. The Colts are now on the clock. The Jaguars are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock. The Jets are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Cowboys are now on the clock. The 49ers are now on the clock. The Lions are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. The Titans are now on the clock. The Giants are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock. The Buccaneers are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. Texans are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock. The Toronto Mounties are now on the clock. The Houston Gunners are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock. The Eagles are now on the clock. The Colts are now on the clock. The Jaguars are now on the clock. The Browns are now on the clock. The Bengals are now on the clock. The Chargers are now on the clock. The Jets are now on the clock. The Falcons are now on the clock. The Cowboys are now on the clock. The 49ers are now on the clock. The Lions are now on the clock. The Broncos are now on the clock. The Cardinals are now on the clock. The Packers are now on the clock. The Rams are now on the clock. The Chiefs are now on the clock. Giants are now on the clock. The Bills are now on the clock. The Raiders are now on the clock. The Bears are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Patriots are now on the clock. The Texans are now on the clock. The Vikings are now on the clock. The Panthers are now on the clock. The Toronto Mounties are now on the clock. The Houston Gunners are now on the clock. The Seahawks are now on the clock.